So, und damit herzlich willkommen zu einem neuen Video und damit, ja, zu später Stunde, nämlich um 1:20 Uhr gerade und ja, ich dachte mir so, mir ist langweilig und von daher habe ich mal nach was gesucht, nämlich nach Creepypastas und ja, ich habe mir da einige kleine Videos eigentlich rausgesucht, aber dann habe ich das hier gefunden. Also ich habe ja, ihr wisst ja, dass ich habe schon einmal bei diesem Fangame von My Little Pony gesagt, von Five Nights at Freddy's Fangame gesagt, dass ich die Serie damals mal geguckt habe. Die ersten 2 Staffeln und ja. Ich habe mal nach Creepypastas davon geguckt, habe auch welche gefunden, ein paar kleine, aber dann habe ich das Ding gefunden, das 1 Stunde und 15 Minuten geht. Wow. Das muss ja was sein. Ist ein ganzer Film oder was? Oder nee, es soll ja Fanfic Reading. So eine Art wie ein Hörspiel oder sowas, weißt du? Oder so. Ja, auf jeden Fall, bevor hier noch lange palabern, ich glaube, wir hier nicht über lang palabern, wir können es jetzt einfach mal und ich reagiere mal darauf. Mal sehen, was es für eine Creepypasta ist. Also dieser Creepypasta ist immer irgendwas mit brutalen Szenen und sowas alles. Also wahrscheinlich die diese Serie feiern und so und ja, creepy Zeug eigentlich verhindern wollen. Guckt euch das hier lieber nicht an. Ich denke mir sicher, das wird abgehen. Bin auf jeden Fall richtig gespannt, was die sich für eine Story ausgedacht haben. Wie gesagt, da es 1 Stunde 15 Minuten geht, also allgemein. Die Creepypasta nennt sich, erstmal kommen wir zum Namen. Creepypasta nennt sich An Apple Sleep Experiment. Also wahrscheinlich irgendwas mit Applejack. Ja, dann. Play. Kommen wir schon in die Warnung.
Subject matter that some listeners might find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised.
Okay. Dann leg mal los.
Applejack wiped the sweat from her brow as she and her brother, Big Macintosh, hauled their last cart of apples towards the barn. It had been an unbearably hot afternoon in Sweet Apple Acres, and Applejack wished for nothing more.
Untertitel wäre mal hilfreich. Warte mal, kann man Untertitel einstellen? Das wäre jetzt ziemlich hilfreich. Kann ich mal gucken? Ach, fucking hell. Nur Englisch. Sorry, dann kann ich hier keinen. Dann müssen wir uns das in Englisch anhören.
And enjoy a cold mug of cider. Can you get the last bushel to the other end of the barn, Big Mac? Applejack asked. On any other day, she might not have let on that she needed help, but she was far too hot and sore to worry about her pride.
Yup.
Came his short reply. Big Mac was also drenched with sweat.
Schau, wie lange es dauert, bis es der ganze creepy Stuff beginnt.
And calm demeanor. Ooh, that's some sort of weather we're having, ain't it? I hope it's a mite different when the Zap Apples get here. Not sure they'll be able to stand it with this kind of heat. Applejack said, breathing a sigh of relief when she was finally able to release the harness of the apple cart she was carrying.
Yup.
See you inside, Big Mac, Applejack said, already out of the barn door as she bade him farewell. Applejack's iconic hat seemed to offer no relief from the sunlight on her trip back to the house. Tired, sore, and irritable, her only solace for the day's labor was the thought of refreshment and relaxation. However, when she rounded the corner, she spied a familiar-looking carriage with the iconic dollar symbol on the side, the trademark of the business tycoon Filthy Rich. 2 earth ponies harnessed to the carriage nodded in her direction as an informal greeting, and Applejack warily nodded.
Ich glaube, die ganzen Charaktere noch kenne.
Why Filthy Rich would be visiting the farm so soon, as he usually only appeared when the Zap Apple jam was prepared and ready for sale. Applejack was surprised to see the front door open and peered inside suspiciously. She found Filthy Rich talking to Granny, who was sitting in the corner looking timid and frail, curled up on her rocker with a tremble in her hooves. It didn't take long for Applejack to understand that this was not a pleasant visit.
You owe a great deal more than that, Granny Smith, and I, for one, would hate to see you lose this farm.
Filthy Rich said, all manner of pleasantry gone in his tone. Granny Smith looked up at him with wide and pleading eyes, but before she could answer, Applejack came to the rescue.
Also wäre die Animation nicht da, dann wäre das wirklich ein
Applejack
Hörspiel.
asked sternly. She narrowed her eyes and glared at Filthy Rich, protective instincts taking priority over common sense.
Your granny here is in quite some debt with me, young filly, and it's high time I'm paid my money.
The Apple family hasn't borrowed money from you in ages, Applejack protested, stomping towards him with a growl.
Now hold on there, Applejack. That ain't quite true, young'un.
Applejack broke her glare to look at Granny.
komm grad das
in
irgendwie nicht mit.
confusion. What do you mean, Granny?
Well, I didn't want to worry you
Lel.
none, but this season hasn't been too kind on Sweet Apple Acres, and we've been needing an
Hat die gerade Lel gesagt? Granny so, Lel.
extra bit or two to keep up with work demand. It's a bad weather spell is all, it'll pass.
That may be so, but what has passed is my deadline. What with interest and everything, I'd say you'd owe about half of your farm's worth by now.
Half the farm? Granny, why didn't you tell me we were hurting for money?
Now, Applejack. This here is my business, so don't you worry none. You're a reasonable pony, Filthy. Can't we work something else?
I believe I may know just the thing.
Filthy said, calming his
komm nicht
speech
ganz
a
mit.
little and straightening his necktie.
I think I could overlook this little debt of yours if you gave me twice the amount of Zap Apple Jam this year.
But you already take half.
Precisely.
Wait a minute. You want to take our entire supply of Zap Apple Jam this year? We need that money along with the solder sales just to keep this family going during the winter.
Well, the way I sees it, y'all don't have much of a choice now, do you, Missy?
You can't actually be considering this, can you, Granny?
Well,
I'll be by in 2 weeks for my product.
Filthy Rich said, having already considered this a done deal.
And I'll be counting them jaws too, so don't go thinking y'all can just hold out on old Filthy Rich. I get every last jar, or this farm goes into foreclosure, you hear?
Applejack was stunned into silence. Filthy Rich cleared his throat.
Warte. Worum geht es? Ich komme irgendwie nicht mit. Vielleicht wisst ihr, dass ich nicht so gut in Englisch bin. Aber ich habe nur irgendwas verstanden von irgendwie... Hier, ich verstehe nur Bahnhof. Irgendwas von einem... Ja, von einem Geschäft oder so verstanden. Dass irgendwie... Ich habe irgendwie verstanden, dass sie irgendwie nicht genug Money oder so kriegen oder so. Oder dass er irgendwie nicht das Geld rausrücken will oder so. Dass er irgendwie in 2 Wochen Zeit haben irgendwie... Ja, das habe ich halt nicht verstanden. Irgendwas in 2 Wochen. Das verstehe ich jetzt irgendwie nicht. Das ist ein bisschen doof. Das musste der Scheiß auch in Englisch sein nur. Wäre jetzt ein deutscher Untertitel da, aber ist nicht. Okay.
Of times, until she snapped out of her trance and realized she was blocking his exit. With his
Warte
head
mal,
held,
also ich weiß auf jeden Fall, dass hier die ihr Geld kriegen, indem sie halt in dem Filthy Rich diese Buntapfelmarmelade da verkauft, ne? Wahrscheinlich hat das damals irgendwas zu tun. Also so kann ich mich erinnern, zumindest. Und ja. Irgendwas ist es damit zu tun. Die verkaufen ihn an den, damit er sie verkauft. Und so kriegen sie verdienen sie ihr Geld.
Filthy Rich left the farmhouse with a sarcastic
Good day.
Applejack
Ja,
waited
wow.
until he had gotten into his carriage.
Die haben jetzt irgendwie
and was
2
out
Wochen
of hearing
Zeit, okay.
range before she confronted Granny again. What are we gonna do if we don't get those Zap Apple Jam earnings this year? We can't pay off a debt if that means we'll be hurting for money in the winter months.
your Granny Smith always thinks of something, Applejack. You just worry about harvesting those Zap apples and leave the rest to me, you hear?
Granny said, offering her an apologetic smile. Applejack didn't reply. Instead, she looked back outside the open door to see the sorry state of the apple trees, baking under the unforgiving heat of the sun. If the rain stalled much longer, she knew her family's troubles were only going to get worse.
Aber jetzt daraus denke ich mal gut an. Bin schon richtig gespannt, wie das weitergeht. Aber irgendwie das wird schon wird auf jeden Fall kein gutes Ende nehmen. Das weiß ich. Creepypasta sind immer so.
For the Apple family. Things had taken a sharp turn for the worse, and Applejack resigned to the fact that she couldn't solve this issue on her own. She raced
So wie ich
from home to
Creepypastas
the
kenne, wird bestimmt
hospital
irgendwer
to
sterben
consult
oder
the
so, keine
only
Ahnung.
pony she knew that could figure her way out of this
Ich kenne ja
mess.
schon ein paar, aber
Twilight! Applejack called,
okay.
letting herself into Twilight's castle.
Sucht ihr jetzt Hilfe bei Twilight oder was?
It wasn't too long before
Hat sie
Applejack
erklärt.
found the princess pacing in the library. She noted that Twilight looked a little more haggard.
Wie sehen die denn aus?
There were beads of sweat along her brow.
Wie sehen die denn aus? Die sehen beide aus, als ob die seit 2 Tagen oder... Nee, länger. Schon seit 5 Tagen oder so nicht gepennt haben. What?
Her usually kept mane was hastily tied in a ponytail to keep it off of her neck. In that moment, it dawned on Applejack that even royalty were victims to the
Wie
unusual
lange habt ihr nicht
weather,
gepennt,
and that
Leute?
wasn't a good sign.
Applejack? What is it?
Twilight asked,
Die,
snapped out of her
die
pace.
reden alle ganz normal, aber aussehen sehen sie, als ob die Wochen oder so nicht gepennt haben. Als
By her
ob.
friend's
Was
entrance.
ist das?
It's a lot of things, really. She hid the dark circles under her eyes with her hat, hoping she didn't look as dreadful as she felt. I came to you because I don't have any other option,
Tell me what's happened.
Twilight said, her voice edging on a strange combination of concern and impatience. First things first. Have you heard anything from Rainbow Dash regarding the weather? Twilight let out a frustrated sigh. Apparently, that was not the right question to ask.
Mir fällt gerade auf, warum hat Twilight so ein großes Ohr? Dicker. So ein richtig fettes Ohr. Was zur Hölle? Und allgemein, es ist mir klar, dass sie nicht die Originalfiguren verwenden dürfen wahrscheinlich. Das ist ja Copyright, aber das... Hättet ihr sie dann nicht wenigstens normal darstellen können? Und nicht so verpennt wie da? Ich will lieber nicht wissen, wie das ausgeht. Aber ich denke mir schon ein bisschen wie...
I've heard that Rainbow Production has completely shut down for the time being. It seems Pegasi are having a hard time.
Und ich will auch nicht wissen, wer da sterben wird. Ich bin mir aber sicher, irgendwer wird's.
I was afraid of that. And the princesses? What do they say?
Princess Celestia and Princess Luna are looking into a spell that can allow salt water to be transformed into rain clouds. For some reason, it doesn't process the same in Cloudsdale's weather machines. If a spell can be found in time, the water from the ocean will save us. But until then...
Twilight stated, but trailed off at the end, so Applejack came to the terrifying conclusion on her own.
I offered to help, but they said I'm needed here instead.
Bei diesen Augen rechne ich die ganze Zeit mit dem Jumpscare. Wird es bestimmt auch noch hier irgendwo geben. Irgendwo gibt es ja hier bestimmt auch irgendwo einen Jumpscare.
Twilight said, gritting her teeth.
Und bei diesen Augen
She hated the thought of being unhelpful in a
macht aber auf jeden Fall eine
time of
gute Atmosphäre.
Well,
Wahrscheinlich hat er es deswegen
I
so
sure
gemacht.
need you. Applejack offered, wishing she could smile in comfort, but unable to do so given the nature of her visit. It's Big Mac. He got wind of Granny's debt to the rich family, and he worked himself to the bone harvesting apples. I think he was hoping to make some extra money before the Zap apples got here. Darn fool was out in the sun so long he went and got himself sick with a heat stroke.
What? Is he...
He's gonna be all right. Doctor says he's got to stay in the hospital for a few days.
Wait.
Was? Irgendwas ist mit... Irgendwas ist mit Big Macintosh passiert? Und... Die muss jetzt alles selbst machen. Aber das haben wir doch schon mal in der Originalfolge gehabt. Ich glaube, es war eine der allerersten. Da musste sie auch alle eine Plantage selber hier die Äpfel pflücken. Da ging es auch bei Macintosh nicht gut. Und ich glaube, das soll jetzt das Prinzip jetzt das gleiche sein. Und die hat halt nur 2 Wochen Zeit, irgendwas dazu, eine gewisse Anzahl an Äpfeln oder so zu machen. Oder irgendwas. War das nicht mit Goldäpfeln? Und die haben doch bestimmt Buntäpfel und da war doch irgend so ein Prinzip da. Ein paar Tage, wo die entstanden sind und so. Ich bin komplett durcheinander. Ich weiß nicht, was hier abgeht. Ich kann ich das auch nicht sagen.
He isn't going to be well in time, is he?
That's precisely why I'm here.
Oh, Applejack, I want to help. I really do, but...
I know, Twi. You've already got a lot on your plate. I don't come asking for your help like that.
Then what do you need from me? Anything I can do to help, I'm happy to do it.
I seem to recall a spell you said you had been working on. If I remember right, it was supposed to help you stay up studying on the nights Princess Celestia gave you those ridiculous reading assignments.
Yes, but how will that help you?
Well, I may not be studying late into the night, but I need to figure out a way to stay awake long enough to get all those zap apples harvested.
Oh, I don't know, AJ. I haven't perfected that spell yet. I have no idea what kind of side effects it might have. Besides, you'd be using it to keep up your strength. All I needed it for was to stay awake a couple more hours for reading.
Why? I wouldn't ask if it wasn't absolutely necessary. Granny's gotten us into quite a financial pickle, and if I don't meet Filthy Rich's quota, I could lose the farm. Applejack admitted, unable to conceal the panic in her tone.
Okay, das wurde confirmed, das ging wirklich irgendwie um Geld oder so, da sie sonst die Farm verliert. Da hat sie jetzt irgendwie ein Zeitlimit oder so. Wirklich, es geht auf jeden Fall um ein Zeitlimit und um Geld, dass sie sonst ihre Farm verliert. Hier wurde es confirmed, okay. Also, die Grundprinzipien der Story habe ich schon mal ein bisschen verstanden. Ich weiß jetzt nur nicht, worum es geht jetzt. Also, was sie jetzt machen muss. Wahrscheinlich Äpfel pflücken in dieser... 2 Wochen ist doch ganz schön lange. Und eigentlich hat es doch, wie gesagt, ich bin ein bisschen durcheinander. Aber die Grundprinzipien der Story habe ich ein bisschen verstanden.
Twilight furrowed her brow and opened her mouth to protest, but was unable
Bin aber
to
gespannt,
find
wie es
the right
weitergeht.
words. Feeling the pressure
Fesselt
of
schon
the
richtig.
situation and the frantic pleading in her friend's voice, she knew she couldn't refuse.
I hope you know what you're doing, Applejack.
She cautioned, leading her friend from the
Hoffe ich
library
auch.
to retrieve her spell.
Irgendwas wird mit Applejack passieren, das glaube ich jetzt irgendwie schon. Wenn nicht, ist sie sogar die am Ende stirbt. Ich weiß es nicht, irgendwas passiert da.
The sun's heat showed no remorse on the day of the Zap Apple harvest. Despite the
Bin aber
severity
wieder
of
so
their
richtig angespannt wie
situation,
immer, wenn ich
the
hier
Apple family found it difficult
Creepypasta
to
gucke.
gain
Bin ich
any
immer irgendwie so ein
outside
bisschen abgespannt.
assistance.
Und vor allem bei so
Most
einer
of the
langen.
extended Apple
Alter
family
Schwede,
was
ich habe noch nie so
tending to
lange
the
angeguckt
down
und
orchards, and
Anspannung.
Applejack's friends all
Vielleicht
had
merkt man es mir an,
places to
aber
be.
ja.
Still, there were a few kind ponyvillians willing to lend a hook.
Goldäpfel. Ich sag immer Goldäpfel. Buntäpfel. Wusste ich doch, das hat doch irgendwas damit zu tun. Und sie musste jetzt irgendwie pflücken, ja.
Though most of them didn't last more than a few hours under the sun. By the day's
Schluck auf.
end, only Apple Bloom
Und
and
sie schluck auf so
Applejack
hier so.
remained. When the sun finally set
Sorry.
over the horizon, Apple Bloom collapsed on the ground, grateful that the heat would finally subside. Although Applejack felt her own looming exhaustion, she was too stubborn to give up the work. She looked at a few bushels they'd collected, and then at the remaining Zap Apple trees, realizing that despite their hard work, more than half of the bucking was left to do. Soon after
Dann will sie nicht mehr
sunset,
die Augen so
Granny
creepy.
Smith emerged, struggling as she walked with what appeared to be 2 glasses of lukewarm
Aber es kann immer ein
cider.
Jumpscare kommen.
Sis, are you coming in? Granny says there's fresh pie inside.
Apple Bloom asked her older sister warily. No can do, Apple Bloom. I was hoping we'd get through more of the trees before sundown. You know as well as I do that these disappear at midnight.
Now, Applejack, we done our best. Besides, I can tell you're about to drop, young Billy, and I'm not about to have another grandchild in the house.
Sagt das Äppelblume? What the fuck? Ja, da hat eine komische Stimme. Klingt ja mehr wie Granny Smith, aber... Hä?
Hospital from exhaustion.
That ain't gonna happen, Granny.
Ach, du sagst
Don't
sogar
go
Granny.
on
Okay,
ahead.
gut, dann ist alles
There's still
okay.
a few more minutes of strength left in these here legs of mine.
Ich wollte
I
schon
want to
sagen.
make sure we get all the Zap apples we can get. Applejack said, walking away from them. Applejack knew it worried Granny to see her working this hard, but she also knew she couldn't risk letting on how important this
Was
was
ist das
with
denn?
Apple Bloom around. Thankfully, every pony had kept quiet about
Okay.
the finance problems around the little filly. As Applejack wandered from one tree to another, she could feel the contents of her saddlebag moving in
Applejack als
rhythm to her
Hengst oder was soll das
steps.
sein?
Somewhere, buried beneath her supplies.
Auf jeden Fall verbringt sie schön ihre Nacht da draußen.
Had the answer to her problems.
Ja, sie gibt sich
Twilight
Mühe.
produced the sleep preventative
Merkt man.
potion the previous day, it came with a strongly emphasized condition. Applejack had to promise to use this as a last resort, an absolute last option. Twilight was worried that the side effects might cause more damage than what it was worth, as she hadn't had time to truly study them. Applejack could see the genuine concern in her friend's expression, and gladly made the promise, even knowing full well that she intended to use it. Still, staying true to her word, Applejack gave the Zap apple bucking her best effort without it. It was an hour or so after sunset that she could feel her body threatening to shut down. Her muscles tensed up, and her vision became hazy, causing her coordination to suffer. Although the sun was long gone, beads of sweat were still rolling off her cheeks, and her breathing became raspy and short. In her rapidly escalating exhaustion, Applejack made a miscalculation in her bucking, and ended up being pummeled to the ground with Zap apples. She groaned and put a hoof to her throbbing head, shaking some apples loose from her hat. Applejack heaved a sigh as she carefully pulled Twilight's potion out of her saddlebag and held it up in the moonlight. I'm sorry, Twi, but I've got to save the farm. She pulled the cork free from the potion vial and downed it.
Irgendwas hat es damit zu tun.
However, the moment she drew the vial away from her lips, she felt a wave of unbearable sickness. Clasping her mouth with her front hooves,
Das hätte sie nicht tun dürfen. Das hätte sie nicht tun dürfen.
The potion and most of her dinner came back up with a vengeance.
Ich wusste, das hätte sie nicht tun dürfen. Und was hat das jetzt für Auswirkungen? Begeht sie jetzt Selbstmordversuche oder so? Ich kenn Creepypasta Zeug und irgendwas hat das jetzt für Auswirkungen. Irgendwas. Okay, nächster Morgen.
When she entered the kitchen, she was surprised to see row upon row of jars filled with fresh.
Was rührt die da zusammen? Was rührt die da zusammen? Ja, da steht überall hier die Buntapfelmarmelade, aber das da sieht mir ganz nach was anderem aus.
Somewhere hidden behind them, she could see the outline of her older sister, who was busily stirring the current pot of jam while simultaneously measuring out the correct amount of honey.
Sis?
Apple Bloom, what in the hay are you doing up so early?
I heard a crash.
Apple Bloom said. She maneuvered her way into the kitchen, making sure not to knock over the precariously stacked jars.
How long have you been up? How'd you make all this jam?
Once I got a little more focused, the rest was easy. Don't you worry none, little sis. I'll have all the jam jarred and ready for sale 2 days earlier than expected. Then we can be done with all this financial nonsense. He'll get his order all right. Applejack said, speaking so quickly it was hard for Apple Bloom to hear.
Was hat die da getrunken, Alter? Das will ich nur zugeben
Apple
müssen.
Bloom took a step back.
Also wahrscheinlich irgend so ein Trunk von Twilight, der irgendwie wach halten soll oder so. Deshalb konnte sie jetzt wahrscheinlich die ganze Nacht durcharbeiten oder so, aber ich will lieber nicht daran denken, was das für Auswirkungen hat. Sie hat sie gewarnt, irgendwas hat sie da gesagt. Ich glaube, sie hat sie irgendwie gewarnt, dass es irgendwie Auswirkungen hat. Und ich will nicht wissen, was, für welche.
Swiping the jar from midair and settling it down on the ground before hurrying back to the jam she was making. Apple Bloom blinked a couple times in awe of her sister's speed and agility. Had she always been this focused?
How many jars do you think you've got here, sis? I don't recall making this much jam last year, and we weren't even able to get most of the trees yesterday.
Oh, I finished the bucking too.
Finished the bucking? On your own? All of them?
Yep, we'll have more jam this season than ever before.
Die hat die ganze Nacht durchgearbeitet mit dem Trunk. Safe.
You don't have to worry about that this year, little sis. I got you covered.
But Granny promised.
The thing is, Apple Bloom, Granny's got a lot on her plate now with Big Mac being gone, and I just figured that I could get the jam done a whole lot faster.
But it just ain't fair. I already told the Crusaders they could come and help out with this year's batch.
Sometimes you can't have what you want.
Okay, sie versucht das schon mal rauszudiskutieren.
Apple Bloom, I'm not arguing about this now.
But Applejack...
I said no! Applejack screamed. She turned to Apple Bloom and growled with a slight twitch in her eye. Apple Bloom felt the pit of her stomach.
Alter, mir gehen jetzt einige Gedanken durch den Kopf, aber ich hoffe nicht, dass sie sich verwirklichen.
She had never
Und die wollte sie auch gar nicht erst
seen her
wissen.
so angry before, and it frightened her. After a moment or so of silence, Applejack blinked a few times and shook her head, returning to the pot of jam.
I was just gonna ask if I could help you.
Apple Bloom whispered. Applejack paused for a moment and looked back at her little sister with a frown. I'm sorry, sis. Why don't you just run along and play instead? I'm doing just fine on my own. Applejack said, the tone in her words letting Apple Bloom know that the decision
Die
was
Sounds im Hintergrund
final.
gefallen mir gar nicht.
Defeated and slightly hurt by her sister's words, Apple Bloom left the kitchen.
Vor allem diese
while
Szene
fighting
gefällt mir nicht
back a
gefallen.
sniffle.
Ja, gib mir die Musik, die ist gut. Die ist
My, that is mighty impressive, young filly.
Filthy Rich watched in delight as his staff loaded the jars of jam into his cart.
It's nice to see a little hustle these days.
And the debt? Applejack asked, finding it difficult to remain still as she stood beside Filthy Rich.
Repaid in full, as far as I'm concerned.
Good, Applejack said, rubbing her right front leg with her left. She could feel the tremor in her body and was aching to get some more work done. 400 jars of jam for the debt repaid.
Beg your pardon.
400 jars? That was the deal. Twice your order from last year.
I believe I said every jar of jam, young filly.
Now, I know you're a reasonable pony and all. You know that if we don't get the sales from the Zap apples, we'll be hurting again in the winter months. I figured since you had gotten your order so quickly, you wouldn't mind us holding on to a few jars.
I appreciate your business sense, Applejack, but a deal's a deal. Even with the extra jam, that debt would still be technically underpaid. I'm doing you a favor, and all I ask is for the jars I was promised.
Applejack's heart was racing, and her blood pressure was increasing rapidly. Now hold on just a minute. That ain't fair and you know it!
Ain't about being fair. It's about knowing how to conduct business.
Applejack stamped her hoof in frustration, but Filthy Rich held out a hoof to stop her before she could say anything else.
Tell you what, I'll let you buy back some of your jam. Half price. For personal use, of course. And if you're hurting for funds by the winter months, then y'all know y'all can come back to old Filthy Rich.
Applejack snorted angrily. Her legs began to quake and her eyes narrowed.
Okay.
Though she would have liked nothing more than to cuss out Filthy Rich, she clenched her teeth shut instead. Without another word, she stomped towards the orchard, each hoof step beating against the ground in anger. Apple Bloom, Scootaloo, and Sweetie Belle remained hidden behind a bush nearby, trying to understand what they had seen.
It can't be true.
Okay, also irgendwie will er nicht das ganze Geld, was Applejack eigentlich das ganze Money, was sie halt für den brauchen, dass wir jetzt irgendwie nicht rausrücken, sondern nur einen Anteil davon. Sondern hat er irgendwie von irgendeinem Versprechen, sie hat irgendwas von einem Versprechen geredet und dass er mehr Geld hier geben wollte, aber jetzt will er irgendwie nur einen Anteil davon rausrücken, dass irgendwas, ja, dass ein Geschäft sei. Und somit wäre, das ist ein bisschen tricky. Okay.
You just can't.
Apple Bloom said, not wanting to believe what she was hearing. Sweetie Belle threw her hooves around her friend in a hug until Scootaloo interrupted them.
Guys, I think there's something off about Applejack.
What do you mean?
Well, she seems kinda mad.
Of course she's mad.
Ja,
That
ist
greedy
klar.
stallion won't even let us keep a single jar. And after she worked so hard, too.
Yeah, but
I'd be mad too! I can't believe Diamond Tiara is gonna have this told over our heads. Reformed or not, she'll never let you live this down.
Bei diesen Stimmen kann ich einfach nicht sagen, wer gerade spricht.
Scootaloo said, her eyes growing wide.
I ain't gonna give her the satisfaction. I say we grab a couple jars and hide them before Mr. Rich can get them all from the house.
Yeah! Guys!
What is it, Scootaloo?
Apple Bloom started, but was cut off when she followed Scootaloo's gaze. Applejack was bucking an old apple tree angrily, kicking it so fiercely that it was beginning to weaken. The three fillies could hear the unmistakable sound of the trunk cracking, so they raced from their hiding place to call out a warning. Applejack
Haut den Baum
couldn't hear
kaputt,
the
ja,
fillies'
wow.
cries. She
Ist
was
er aggro?
lost in her rage, imagining that
Ist halt richtig
instead of
aggro jetzt
bucking the
halt.
tree, she was bucking the tar out of a certain
Willst
green
du wesentlich an dem
apple's
Baum
body.
rächen?
She could see
Geil,
his
was hat denn der Baum
grin
getan, ey?
and the selfish gleam in his eyes reflected in the tree trunk. She panted.
Willst du ihn jetzt kaputt hauen oder was?
Bucked, so focused on getting out her frustrations that she didn't realize the tree was falling apart. Branches cascaded
Ja, die
down
werden jetzt
and left
auseinandernehmen.
little cuts in her fur as they fell. However, Applejack remained unfazed, unable to feel the slightest bit of pain. Soon after, the image of Filthy Rich on the tree
Meine
began to
Fresse.
laugh, as if to mock her efforts
So,
to take out
Minderheitenrechte,
her
ey.
anger. Although her back hooves were physically unable to handle the amount of stress she was making in her form,
Lol.
she didn't care. All she could think of was
Warum?
bucking the
Warum?
smile right off that
Was,
boneless
wirklich, was hat dir der
face.
Baum getan?
Apple Bloom and the other
What?
Crusaders
What?
were
What?
only
What?
a few
What? What?
yards
What?
away when they heard the terrifying crunch. At first,
Also das war nicht
they
der Baum.
believed that Applejack had actually managed to buck down an entire apple tree. But upon closer inspection, they realized the sickening truth.
Geht
It
jetzt
wasn't
los
the
oder
tree
was?
that had cracked, but the bones in Applejack's back legs. They were unmistakably visible under Applejack's skin, jetting out to the side and causing her hooves to turn the wrong way.
Die hatten einen offenen Bruch.
Screamed in surprise,
Verdammte
and
Scheiße.
Scootaloo lost all color in her cheeks. Apple Bloom was frozen in place, horrified at what she was witnessing. Meanwhile, Applejack's ears were ringing, and she felt a wave of nausea as she attempted to buck the tree again. This time, however, she
Oh,
felt
shit.
a tremor in her body when her hooves made contact with the bark. She didn't realize
Wie
the
das
feeling
Blut
was
gegen den
pain,
Baum gespritzt
and
ist,
it
Alter.
only served
Alter
to
Schwede.
confuse and anger her more. As she tried
Oh
to
nein,
look
oh,
again, the
mm.
ringing in her ears
Ich will das Bein
only
gar nicht
got
erst sehen.
louder.
Ich sehe schon, wie das runterzoomt. Die wollen uns jetzt das Bein zeigen.
Contact with the tree
Will
sent
ich
a
nicht.
wave of shock through her body, and she felt her muscles tense and freeze. Applejack stumbled to the ground, still oblivious to the broken bones. She looked up at the tree.
Ach,
but
Bones,
no
sogar
one
beide.
recognized it to be
Ja,
anything
geil.
other than Filthy
Good job.
Rich, towering
Ich hätte sogar
above
beide
her,
Beine gebrochen.
delighting in her
Boah,
defeat.
creepy as fuck, Mann. Warum?
Apple Bloom cried, averting her gaze from her sister's back hooves. She screamed again. Applejack was unresponsive.
Mir gefällt nicht, wie das ausgeht. Und das ist gerade mal 26 Minuten von 1 Stunde und 15 Minuten. Was kommt denn da noch alles?
Then looked at the tree in confusion.
Applejack?
I'll get help.
Scootaloo offered, taking the opportunity to get as far
Aber
away
das
from
kommt
that
davon, wenn man
place
sich eine
as possible.
Creepypasta reinzieht.
Quit!
Da muss man rechnen.
You're laughing!
Habe ich auch getan.
Applejack gasped. Her
Das ist ja
voice
schon krass,
cracked
aber-
as she spoke. She attempted getting back up, but each time she tried, she faced a new wave of nausea and unresponsiveness. Applejack felt some pony tugging on her front hoof and turned to see Apple Bloom hovering over her. Apple Bloom was saying something to her, but all she heard was muffled shouts with no meaning and a loud, unyielding ringing in her ears. She tried once more to get up, but Apple Bloom protested, pointing to her back hooves. Applejack propped herself up to see what all the fuss was about and realized something had happened. She tilted her head to the side, wondering why she
Hintergrund
hadn't
hört man noch
felt any
Äpfelblumen,
pain.
Alter
Even
Scheiße.
now, she failed to see the
Oh, jetzt zoomt
marks
dann das Bein ran.
caused by the fallen branches and debris. Apple Bloom shouted something incoherent again.
Oh.
As soon as she left,
Hätte er sich tun
ring
dürfen,
in
oder?
Applejack's
Ball.
ears waned. With what conscious
Hau ab.
thought she had left, she pulled a few branches within reach closer, looking for a few thick and
Ja,
sturdy
das bringt der Ball auch
ones.
nichts mehr.
Her head was swimming, and she felt wave after wave of nausea, but wasn't deterred from her task. Once she found what she needed, She pulled her useless back
Ja,
legs in
Facebook,
front
halt
of
die
her
Fresse.
and laid them as straight as she could manage.
Aber
Her heart was
hat sie auch ihre
pounding
ganzen Beine
rapidly in her
abgebrochen?
chest
Also nicht nur
as
Bruch,
she
sondern
calmly
auch...
searched for some rope in her
Nee.
saddlebag. She'd never set a bone before, but she
Jedenfalls
wasn't
den offenen
going to
Bruch,
wait
alter
useless on the
Schwede.
ground until some pony found her. She positioned her front hooves over her leg and applied pressure. When she heard the snap,
Oh, der
she
Sound,
winced in
Alter, der
anticipation
Sound.
and felt a shiver run down her spine.
Übelst realistisch,
But no
ey.
pain followed. The second leg was even less of a shock,
Hör auf
despite the
damit.
multiple snapping
Hör auf
noises she
damit.
heard. Once she properly tied her makeshift splints to her legs,
Bring sie einfach zum Arzt
she
und
pulled
hör mit den
herself
Geräuschen
up,
auf, Alter.
using the strength in her
Komm mir nicht damit.
forearms. Now,
Ja, bitte,
she
bitte,
just
komm.
needed to figure out a way to make it to Ponyville Hospital across town.
Bleib mir bloß mit diesen Geräuschen vom Leib.
Applejack
Alter
stared
Schwede.
blinking at the ceiling of the hospital. She'd grown irritated rather quickly by the staff, who both marveled and chastised her for making her way to the hospital without assistance. When she attempted to explain the situation,
Ihr
she found it
Gesicht,
difficult to
Alter!
recall any detail. All she could remember was the fury she felt for Filthy Rich, and the senseless beating she gave him afterwards. She
Alter.
continually demanded to see him, to make sure
Die
that he was
Designs,
alright.
Alter. Die
She
Augen,
must
die
have
Augen.
really done a
Bezüglich die
number on him
Augen.
to break her legs like that.
Alter.
He was a lot stronger than most stallions.
Alter, wir gehen mal kurz das durch hier. Also... Ihre Augen, Alter. Ihre Augen. Die confirmen eigentlich bei mir, im Kopf confirmt es eigentlich immer, so wie das aussieht, confirmt es eigentlich bei mir ein Jumpscare eigentlich. Ich rechne eigentlich schon mit einem Jumpscare. Aber guckt euch das an, die ist auch noch am Bett gebunden. Mit diesen Schnallen da. Alter Schwede, Alter. Das ist so gut gemacht.
In fact, she thought the only other pony who might be able to withstand a beating of that caliber
Das hat mit diesem Trank da am Anfang zu tun.
Wasn't he in this hospital too?
Das macht die irgendwie verrückt.
Applejack's thoughts were louder than she remembered them being. Sometimes she couldn't hear the doctors or nurse ponies over their frantic buzz. She wasn't sure how long she had been in that hospital bed. She recalled having some pony tell her
She needed to rest.
Ich hab Gänsehaut.
it wouldn't come.
Ich weiß nicht, ob ihr es seht, aber ich hab Gänsehaut.
24 hours.
Wasn't Twilight's potions supposed to wear off by then? That filthy rich
Nein,
pony
nein,
was
nicht Jumpscare. Nein.
trouble.
She wondered how much beating he had taken.
Alter Schwede. Hör auf. Hör auf.
See him.
Hör auf. Hör auf. Hör auf. Hör auf. Hör auf. Hör auf.
She'll ask,
Chill.
She
Chill.
forgot to mention that he still might be in the orchard in pain.
Ihre Augen.
somewhere.
Jumpscare incoming.
Deserved it though.
especially for his insatiable greed.
For some reason, she thought Apple Bloom was there. But that couldn't be right. What would she be doing there? Oh,
Jumpscare.
I really can't forget.
Ihre Augen, Alter. Ihre Augen. Ich sag's ja.
Filthy rich.
She literally just remembered about how
Ich
she
kann da jetzt auch gar nicht zuhören. Ich erwarte einfach nur...
Not filthy.
Ich will einfach nur nicht einen Jumpscare in die Fresse kriegen.
Maybe it was her brother.
I mean, he was in the hospital after all, too. Did she break her legs hurting her big brother?
Aber gerade eben Gänsehaut pur hier.
Awful.
Jetzt wird zwar wieder besser, aber... Alter Schwede.
He's tougher than dried leather. She wondered why her legs were bandaged up, though.
She felt fine. Maybe she wasn't
Aber wenn es
supposed to
rumbackt,
be
dann
here.
gehe ich immer ein Stück zurück.
Applejack attempted to get
Sicherheitsabstand.
But found she'd been restrained to the bed. What in tarnation?
up. Applejack whispered angrily to herself, pulling on the straps that held her down. What was this?
Some kind of joke? And who in the hoof bandaged her legs like that? Was something wrong with them?
Wie die Kamera immer weiter an sie rangeht, Alter.
There, Applejack snapped.
Ich hab mich von dem Scheiß erschreckt. Geil.
Confusion.
Maybe she needs a little assistance, brother of mine.
Flim and flam. What
Oh,
are
die
these
Typen.
spineless, no good,
Kommen wir nicht mit den
fast-talking
Typen.
hooligans doing here?
Ihr Gesicht! Ihr fucking Gesicht! Hört auf damit!
Way to talk to the ponies who can get you out?
Get me out? Out of what?
Ich habe zu viele Horrorfilme geguckt.
Hey, what's
Halt dein
going on
Maul.
here? Why can't I move?
Applejack asked, thrashing about.
If you've gone and done something, I swear.
Or you'll what? Buck us to death?
Now, now, brother. I wouldn't go taunting the crazy mare. She's killed a pony that way, you know.
Killed a pony?
Why, her own brother, too. Such a shame.
Oh, you leave my brother alone!
Applejack screamed.
She turned to the
Oh nein, es geht
restraints of her
weiter.
right hoof and pulled as hard as she could, trying to get it free.
I always knew you were pathetic.
Trixie,
Wo kommt der Trixie jetzt her?
what the hell's going on here?
I had to see for myself. Poor little Applejack, beating the tar out
Wow,
of her own.
wow, 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 wow. Stopp. Was geht hier ab? Plötzlich kommen hier Flim und Flem hier plötzlich daher. Die sehen noch creepier aus als vorher. Und ich dachte, Trixie hat nur ein Problem mit Twilight. Aber doch, was hat die denn jetzt mit Applejack? Oh mein Gott. Boah. Ich bin fix und fertig. Und zwar jetzt schon. Obwohl wir gerade noch nicht mal bei der Hälfte angekommen sind. Obwohl, lang. Die Hälfte von. Warte, ich muss das rechnen. 37 Minuten, und 50 Sekunden. 30 Sekunden, ich bin blöd. Ich weiß. Kann man wieder nicht. Fast die Hälfte, wir haben fast die Hälfte erst einmal erreicht. Und es wird jetzt, und ich bin jetzt schon fertig.
Then how do you explain the broken legs?
Applejack looked down at her legs in confusion.
Why were they bandaged?
Did she get hurt?
Boah, Alter, hör auf!
I'm sure a taste of our famous tonic will cure what ails you.
Oh mein Gott, ich hab gerade eben erst gesehen, die schaut jetzt doch.
Or your money back?
Alter Schwede!
She deserves to be like this.
Applejack growled and pulled again at the restraints on her hoof. When
Gänsehaut-Moment mal wieder.
she decided it was time for a last resort. She bit down.
Nur die Augenbewegung hat mir schon Gänsehaut verpasst, Alter.
Gnawing at it as best as she could. Applejack was feeling frantic. The room was becoming more.
Komm, hör auf, reiß dir nicht noch irgendwas raus. Komm,
And all these unfriendly faces were staring down at her as she
ich will nicht, dass dir noch irgendwas ausreißt.
Get away, you hear? Get away! Applejack screamed. She thrashed wildly, biting down harder at the restraint.
Da sie ihre,
Pulling as hard as she
da
was
sie ihre Augen so bewegt.
Tonic!
Stay back!
Oh, come now, Applejack. It can't hurt to try. We'll
Alter.
show you.
It's easy.
Flynn said.
Ja, jetzt easy, genau.
poured the contents of the
Oh, ich sehe das.
restraint on her hoof.
Now, Applejack,
Wenn es kurz buggt.
can't hurt to
Da
try.
kommt irgendwie so ein.
We'll show you.
It's easy.
It's easy.
Said.
Da ist irgendwas. Da ist irgendwas während diesem Bug. What the fuck? Nicht so weit. Ach nee, es war schon davor, okay.
Free.
I always
For a taste of our famous
Da hat sie
tonic.
umgeguckt.
Did it with her teeth. Faces were staring down at her, harder at the restraint.
Pulling as hard as she was able.
Get away, you hear? Get away! Applejack screamed. She thrashed wildly, biting down harder at the
Ich will jetzt sehen, was man da sieht.
restraint.
Es geht zu schnell, es geht zu schnell.
Get away! Get away, you hear? Get away!
Warte, ich mach mal eine geringere Geschwindigkeit. Vielleicht können, Alter, ich will jetzt sehen, was man da sieht. Ich will das jetzt sehen. 25-fach.
Applejack screamed.
Scream!
She thrashed wildly, biting down harder at the restraint.
Pulling as
Trixie war das.
hard as she was able.
Oh, aber wenigstens wissen wir jetzt Bescheid.
Try some tonic.
So, damit es wieder hier normal wird, normale Geschwindigkeit.
Applejack screamed.
Trixie ist
She
das die ganze
thrashed
Zeit.
wildly, biting down harder at the restraint.
pulling as
Ja,
hard as she was
ich sehe es auch einigermaßen. Tricks sie es die ganze Zeit.
Stay back!
Oh, come now, Applejack. It can't hurt to try. We'll show you.
It's easy.
It's easy.
He poured the contents of the tonic over the restraint on her hook. She felt a warm liquid.
Nein, es geht die Playstation aus!
And turned up her nose at the scent. It reminded her of a rusted coin.
Schon schlimm genug, dass ich mir das angucken muss, aber im Dunkeln gucke ich mir das bestimmt nicht an. Dann kann ich nicht mehr schlafen. Und ich muss halt noch schlafen. Das sieht man mich auch besser. Das ist eigentlich schon gut, weil die ganze Zeit war nur die Playstation hier vorne an. Oh, merkt man's? Ich zitter. Ich weiß nicht, ob man sieht, aber meine Hand hier, womit ich mein Handy halte, zittert die ganze Zeit.
Applejack looked down at herself and noticed that Flim and Flam's tonic had somehow gotten all over her fur and was continuing to drip freely from her hoof. What's in this stuff anyway? What'd you do to me?
Why, I didn't do a thing, young filly. I'm only a business pony after all.
You. I remember you!
She charged at him.
But he was still somehow able to dodge her advances.
It's just good business.
Alter, und wie sie da liegt, Alter. Mit ihren verbluteten Hufen da.
Wanna bet?
Das ist schon krass genug, obwohl ich ja Licht anhabe. Wie gesagt, ich will mir das... Ihr könnt es ja versuchen, dass euch das im Dunkeln reinzuziehen. Alleine. Aber ich brauche noch Schlaf.
And one bounced. Twilight fell behind and couldn't mask the tears of guilt and shame.
Das war bisher richtig krass. Richtig krass. Also richtig gut gemacht.
She knew she was to blame. Doctors had refused Applejack visitors for the first few days, trying to rein in her sanity. They contacted Twilight personally when they were medically stumped as to why she wasn't responding to their sedatives. Twilight pored over her notes, gleaming every detail that she had on the subject of the potion she had never mastered. Book after useless book was thrown in disarray, while she and her friends waited to see their ailing friend. When the time had come at last,
oder wusste sie selbst nicht von diesen Nebenwirkungen? Weil irgendwelche Nebenwirkungen hat das. Was hat das damit zu tun, dass sie so verrückt wird? Auf jeden Fall.
Pinkie Pie bounced happily in denial.
Ja, kann sie ja nichts anderes.
And declared out loud, "We're here." She turned to
Kann
see
er nur
the
happy
hopeful
sein.
smiles from her friends, with the exception of Twilight, who hung her head in shame.
Come now, darling. I'm sure Applejack will forgive you. It was an honest mistake, and you were only trying to help.
Forgive me? She may not even recognize me. Terrible things happen to ponies when they don't sleep, Rarity. Some pony who has been awake this long has never been seen before, all else considered. Applejack should be dead right now.
Well, that's not very cheery. We're supposed to be cheery, remember?
It's not like we haven't run into these kind of problems before. You'll figure it out, Twi. And you will be fine.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Her friends knew it was a lie.
Nix ist in Ordnung, das
Not
weiß
a
ich doch jetzt
convincing
schon.
one at that. But it was all the permission they needed to press onward.
Meine Haare machen immer wieder verrückt, ey.
When they opened that
Aber statt darüber nachzudenken,
they were
sollte ich...
surprised to see the lights were off, and there was a momentary hope
Soll ich
that
mal lieber hier
Applejack might
aufpassen?
have finally fallen asleep. While Rainbow searched the wall for a light switch, the ponies all turned their nose up to the strange smell.
Is that...
Rarity started, but was quickly cut off by Fluttershy's shrill of terror. Moments before the light flickered on.
Was ist...
Blood!
Twilight cried. The other ponies could only stare in horror at the chaos of the room. The hospital bed was thrown
Was
up
ist da
against
vorgefallen,
one of the
Alter?
walls. The medical equipment strewn in every corner. The restraints were
Die hat sich auf jeden Fall losgebunden, aber Alter,
upper left corner of the bed
hat sie
was
sich doch noch was
knocked
rausgerissen
through
oder so?
and caked with a layer of blood. The blood smeared on the floor and walls showed that quite a struggle had taken
Aber
place.
da ist ein zerbrochenes Fenster, die ist
It
irgendwie
didn't take the
rausgesprungen.
ponies long to notice the open window and the trail of blood that led to it.
She can't have gotten far. Come on!
Rainbow Dash said, soaring out the window in pursuit.
What's she gonna do, Twilight? Will she hurt herself again? I don't know.
Ich erwarte gleich den nächsten Jumpscare, den nächsten Gänsehaut-Effekt. Jumpscare gab es bisher nicht, aber ich will bloß... Alter Schwede.
Applejack's disappearance.
Aber wir machen das im Einteiler. Wir ziehen das jetzt durch.
When her friends were unable to find her within hours of the discovery, they widened their search to no avail. Days passed with no sign of the Earth
Sind wir in der
pony.
Höhle?
And to make matters
Spielt es in der
worse,
Höhle?
other ponies in Ponyville
Also wir sind nicht in der Höhle. Ich bin hier daheim und gönne mir diese Creepypasta, aber... Ach nee, das ist ein Wald. Okay.
Including a particular green
Sah ein bisschen aus wie eine Höhle.
called Lyra Heartstrings. When she discovered Bonbon was missing from their home that evening, she didn't hesitate to assume the worst. Her mind went into overdrive, pushing her onward despite the risks of wandering alone. She had to find her. She had searched everywhere Bonbon could have possibly been.
Bonbon. Was für ein Bonbon?
To the cakes about a new recipe. Vinyl in Octavia's house.
Bin mir sicher aber nicht aus Sister Location. Diese Bonnie-Puppe von Fan der Freddy.
She probably went there for more fresh eggs for the current batch of treats she was making. Lyra continued her gallop, praying and hoping Bonbon was safe. She saw a figure coming into focus among the clearing. They were slumped and slowly along the trail.
Ja, jetzt haben wir es
She
gesehen.
recognized the now disheveled, filthy hat from afar. She galloped up right next to
Was
her.
machst du?
Thank goodness! All of Ponyville has been worried sick about you. Have you seen Bonbon? All sorts of ponies have gone missing, and not even Princess Twilight has been able to control the panic. But if you're here, then there's hope, right? Maybe.
Deine Augen sehen okay aus, aber dein...
Wait, what happened to you?
Du schaust irgendwie...
Are you alright?
Das sind komisch.
Applejack slowly tilted her head up from the ground to meet the green unicorn's gaze. The haunting glare from pinprick pupils and the dark circles around her eyes sent a terrifying shiver down Lyra's back, catching her off guard. She recoiled away in confusion.
Should I call some pony?
She asked timidly, taking in the true nature of Applejack's appearance in horror. She had used a handkerchief to haphazardly stop the bleeding from her left front hoof, where a good chunk of flesh was missing. The restraint marks on her hooves were still present from her excessive thrashing, and the old dirty bandages clung loosely to her back legs. Her skin looked aged and tired, having lost some of its usual orangish color, marred by the scars of the branches that had fallen on her many weeks ago. Her mane and tail were unkept, and although she still wore her iconic hat, it too had been a casualty to the fallen debris and the unknown events that followed. All Applejack could make out from behind her haunted stare was an outline of Filthy Rich, the pony she had been pursuing in her aimless wander. The image her chaotic brain had given him was marked by an unholy grin, the likes of which frightened her at her very core. Thinking fast, Applejack turned and bucked the pony to the ground. Lyra was out cold by the time her head hit the dirt road. When Lyra regained her consciousness,
Und die Musik!
she found she had been
Hör auf!
to what felt like an old tree stump. Her front hooves were secured above her head by something sharp, and when she tried to move them, it
Hat sie Lyra
sent
umgebracht.
pain along her hooves, and a fresh trail of blood that trickled onto her brow. Her heart started beating faster, and her breaths became hard and labored. Her torso was crushed against the apple tree in what she assumed to be
Die hat sie irgendwie an einem Baum
limiting the
gebunden.
use of her lungs. Slowly, Lyra's senses began to intake her surroundings. The rancid odor.
Und was ist da ganz links? Was ist das da ganz links?
Every labored breath. She thrashed her head back and forth, trying to avoid the trail
Alter
of blood
Schwede.
from her hooves getting into her eyes. It took several minutes for the
Augen,
intense
ja.
headache and the blurred vision to ease enough for her to see where she was. At
Da
first,
ist ein Kopf
she could only
aufgespießt
make out
worden.
trees and a
Ich
sunset.
sehe es gerade, da ist ein
She
Kopf
guessed
aufgespießt.
that she was in some part of the Apple family orchard that had
Alter
been
Schwede,
long
Alter,
forgotten,
hör auf.
as evidenced by the mangled, overgrown branches and piles
Warte,
of
ist da...
dead leaves littering the...
Stopp. Ist das Scooterlo? Alter Schwede. Ich sag's euch, ich bin fix und fertig. Alter Schwede.
ground around them. As her vision progressed, she realized the strange lumps on the trees weren't branches, and the piles below them weren't leaves.
Die hatte einfach mal das Scooterlo
She closed
aufgespießt.
her eyes tightly,
Geköpft und aufgespießt. Beides gleichzeitig.
pieces together,
Also beides.
as her other
Nicht gleichzeitig,
senses
aber
were
beides.
violated by her current reality.
Alter.
On her next intake of the rancid odor, her eyes fell open, and she let out an ear-piercing scream of terror. The remains of the missing ponies of Ponyville had been the objects she'd seen in her haze, or rather, what was left of them. Gardening tools and worn rope adorn the apple tree trunks, holding only sparse pieces of ponies they had once held in place. The rest of said ponies laid in misshapen heaps at the bases of the trees. Bones, entrails, and colorful coats now stained crimson with the odor of their deaths carried in the breeze. The tree directly adjacent to Lyra's showed a worn and bloodied hoe had been sharpened and slammed into the tree trunk. Resting atop the blade was the head of Bonbon. The terror still
Die Augen, die Augen.
on her face.
Schon wieder die Augen,
Final
Alter.
moments of life. The rest of Bonbon's body had not been completely severed by the hoe. Her spine was exposed from the neck, and her broken body hung awkwardly around it. Lyra sobbed openly, too traumatized to understand what was happening, or how to get herself out of harm's way. Look who finally decided to join us.
Applejack! Thanks, Celestia. Hurry! Get me down from...
Applejack effectively silenced her. She lassoed the rope around Lyra's neck and pulled it tight, effectively choking her words.
Tain't very nice, you know? Every time I try to talk some sense into you, you refuse to listen. You up and die, you see?
Lyra sputtered and gagged, trying to process what she had seen and connect the carnage to the pony she had once called friend.
But I
Hier haben wir die Bestätigung. Nicht nur einer stirbt, sondern
know how you rich ponies are.
viele.
Thinking you're much better than us country ponies. So much cleverer. Every time you try and hide,
Alter. Wie sie auch mit Gabeln aufgestochen hat an dem Baum, Alter.
shut your trap!
Applejack screamed, slamming the shovel against the unicorn's horn so violently that it caused the skull to fracture.
You had your chance.
Ui, 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 ui. Am Hintergrund, am Hintergrund, am Hintergrund. Die Lehrerin da aus der Schule da. Wie hieß sie denn? Miss Shirley. Die ist einfach aufgehängt worden. Alter Schwede. Ich sag's ja, das ist hier kein Spaß, Alter.
For nearly 4 generations. Why, we founded this town. If my granny hadn't... I said shut up! It's rude! Where was I? Oh, yeah. And then Pinky was handing them out like they were free samples. No, wait, no. That was Rarity. And then Fluttershy wanted to gather them up like they were tame critters, and I wasn't gonna have any of it. You hear?
Lyra was hyperventilating.
Was? Ich hab nur eine Frage. Warum das alles? Schiebt sie irgendwie die Schuld auf alle oder was? verstehe irgendwie die Story jetzt gar nicht mehr. Sie tötet die alle, weil sie irgendwie sie ist so gestört geworden, dass sie irgendwie jetzt allen irgendwie die Schuld dazu gibt. An das. Was zur Hölle? Und jetzt hat sie irgendwie von den anderen, von ihren Freunden geredet. Dass die irgendwie was damit...
All of her strength to catch her breath under the grip of the rope.
Who are you? What are you doing here? These are my apple trees, you see? Who sent you?
Lyra could only reply by looking Applejack in the eye, trying to convey her plea for mercy.
He sent you, didn't he? He wants this farm. You're a spy!
Applejack screamed angrily. She released the rope from under her hoof, allowing Lyra to breathe again.
Sie glaubt, dass die ganzen alle von den Brüdern da geschickt wurden. Alter Schwede, was geht hier ab, ey? Was geht hier ab?
She didn't notice Applejack's momentary absence until it was too late. Applejack screamed and thrust the shovel into the mare's side, slicing it open on contact.
We don't take kindly to spies around here.
Applejack pulled the shovel loose and stared at the fresh blood on its blade.
You can tell your boss, Filthy Rich. He ain't...
Nee, Filthy Rich hat sie geschickt, meint sie.
Lyra gasped moments before the shovel punctured her skin a second time. She cried out in weak agony.
Okay, Applejack schaut wesentlich so creepy.
Into her lungs rapidly.
Gut so. Das ist natürlich auch scheiße, aber ist mir lieber, als dass Applejack noch so ein creepy Gesicht hat.
And accidentally spat it into her face. Applejack breathed slowly, allowing the anger to come to a boil. She screamed again and thrust the shovel at the mare every time she dared to splash her with blood. By the time she was finished, Lyra barely looked like a mare at all. Just the loose hanging remains of a demolished creature.
Filthy?
Applejack asked, looking at Lyra's remains and then all around her.
Got away again! Don't you worry. I'll find you, and I'll keep finding you too. You can't hide forever, you coward!
She said, pulling the gardening shears from the hooves that held her face against the trunk.
Wenn du schon jemanden tötest, dann töte doch einfach Filthy. Dann muss nur einer sterben.
That had been tied around her torso.
Alter.
Applejack's movements were slow and deliberate, aside from the occasional twitch.
Alter, ich sehe es gerade da. Der hat die komplett auseinandergenommen. Alter. Wie oft auch immer ich das schon sage, es ist einfach krank. Es ist einfach richtig, richtig krank.
From Applejack's rage.
Alter. Aber wir haben es bald geschafft.
The orchard was as eerie as the Everfree forest, to the three fillies shuffling along one of the many paths. Apple Bloom led her friends deeper into its fields with a single-minded determination. For a short time after her sister's hospitalization, Apple Bloom had believed Granny Smith when she claimed that her sister wasn't well enough to be visited.
Warte mal.
However, when the weeks passed with no word,
Scooterloo fehlt, oder was? Also hat sie Scooterloo wirklich? Oder nee, da hinten kommt sie langsam, links kommt sie langsam an. Aber wen hat sie denn da geköpft? Da hing so ein Kopf, der Scooterloo sehr ähnlich war.
Before hastily ushering them out the door. Soon after, rumors and whispers of disappearances around Ponyville had surfaced. Miss Shirley addressed the confusion and the panic by insisting the ponies.
Miss Shirley, ja, die wurde aufgehängt.
Apple Bloom didn't buy it though, especially when an unspoken increase in security could be seen around Ponyville. Fillies like the Crusaders were no longer permitted to be outside their home past sunset, as ordered by Princess Twilight herself. With every new lie told, Apple Bloom's patience wore thin, and her temper flared. She knew if she were to get any answers, she would have to find them herself. Ponies were so distracted by the unchanging heat of the day and the panic of the night that it wasn't too difficult for the 3 fillies to stage their escape. They had arranged a harmless playdate at Fluttershy's cottage, reaffirming that such a thing would brighten their spirits. They knew that Fluttershy would spread herself thin, caring for her animals suffering under the heat, and might be the only pony they could evade. Though she was hesitant, Fluttershy agreed, hoping it would convey the point that things weren't as hopeless as the ponies feared. The night had begun innocently enough, playing games with Fluttershy and her animals, with forced laughter and smiles. When the time came to sleep, Fluttershy was no fool. She posted her bear friend at their door as an informal guard. The Crusaders were told this was just a precaution to keep them safe, but they knew it prevented them from sneaking out at night as they had before. What she didn't count on, however, was Harry the Bear's distracting appetite, and how easily he could be persuaded away from his post by the scent of honey. Sweetie Belle held the delectable jar outside the window with her magic, and Scootaloo flapped her
Froh sein, wenn ich heute
wings
überhaupt noch
to
schlafen
send the
kann.
scent his way.
Es ist zwar jetzt nicht übelst krass, aber schon wirklich richtig krank. Verstörend.
It's too hot. I want to go back.
Sweetie Belle whined, magic
Und wenn nicht, passiert so noch was.
branch nearby to fan herself as
Ich
she
rechne immer noch mit einem Jumpscare.
Scootaloo reared up on her hind legs and flapped her wings rapidly, causing a little breeze for her friend.
Thanks.
Sweetie Belle said, heaving a grateful sigh.
We can't go back. Do you know how much trouble we're gonna be in?
Apple Bloom chimed,
Lass mich raten, sie
standing
tappen in die
next to Sweetie
Falle.
Belle to enjoy the breeze,
Und
before
sie werden
Scootaloo
ebenfalls
flopped
getötet.
down onto
Lass
the
mich
ground in
raten.
fatigue.
Well, then what are we doing here anyway?
I told you. Big Mac said there's a bunch of tools missing from the barn. And yesterday, I heard him tell Granny that he found one of them in the West Orchard.
But what does that have to do with Applejack?
Don't you see? Only
Ein
Applejack
das
and
ist ein
Big
Fehler.
Mac knew where they kept the tools, and there was nothing else wrong with the barn. I checked it myself.
But if she went to the barn, why not just go home?
Well,
Wer
Granny said there was something wrong with Applejack.
tut es, bevor es zu spät ist.
Like, she didn't know who she was and who other ponies were either. And that's why she had to stay in the hospital for so long. Maybe she just got confused and tried to get back to work on the trees and then got lost.
Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo exchanged worried glances. Hearing Apple Bloom tell the story to them now didn't seem quite as exhilarating as it did when they were planning to go out on their own. Neither of the little fillies had the heart to tell Apple Bloom that her idea was a long shot at best, and missing tools didn't explain the other pony disappearances. From lack of a response, Apple Bloom continued.
I just want to see if we can find something in the West Orchard that maybe my brother didn't see. He was a mite tired from the heat when he found that old rake, and he didn't really think he was going to come back again for a while. I just can't let Applejack get more lost.
What if we get lost?
Don't worry, I know where I'm going.
Apple Bloom insisted, pressing onward and faking a look of
Du hast doch
certainty.
keine Ahnung.
What's that awful smell?
Scootaloo chimed in, covering her nose with her front hoof, Sweetie Belle and Apple Bloom following suit.
Ew! It smells like that time we found that dead skunk next to the clubhouse.
Girls, does that look like dried blood to you?
Apple Bloom stammered, stopping dead in her tracks. She pointed to the dead patch of grass, stained with crimson hoof steps, that led further into the orchard.
I think it's time to go back now. Look, it's Rainbow
Eine
Dash's
bessere,
saddlebag.
eine bessere Idee.
Bounding after it alongside her friends.
Ghost
Maybe she's still
Town.
here, and maybe she found something. A clue to...
Warum steht denn da Ghost
She
Town?
paused, gasping in terror when she lifted the saddlebag off of the ground, only to find it had been resting in a fresh pool of blood.
Let's go back, please.
Sweetie Belle cried in terror, her eyes watering and her legs trembling.
Listen, do you girls hear that?
Apple Bloom whispered.
Geht einfach zurück, geht einfach zurück.
Silent. The three fillies strained to hear the sounds of garbled cries coming from somewhere in the direction of the bloody hoof prints.
Stop! Rainbow Dash!
Scootaloo screamed, abandoning her logic and racing alongside the blood trail in a blind panic.
Oh.
Wait!
Apple Bloom protested. She and Sweetie Belle weren't too
Ich
far
einfach nur, dass es
behind.
endet.
All three fillies came to a grinding halt when a wounded Rainbow Dash sped backwards through the air, landing with a crash into the trunk of an apple tree. Rainbow's face was badly beaten, and blood oozed from her lips. Her left eye was swollen shut, and her legs and torso were marred with hoofprint bruises to indicate she had been beaten and bucked. Clasped in her right hoof was a strange-looking needle, filled with a white shimmering substance. Somewhere in the opposite direction, the assailant was laughing and shouting.
I won't ever go back! And nothing you pathetic ponies do or say can make me!
Applejack! It's Applejack!
Apple Bloom finally muttered, choking on her words as her mind tried desperately to understand what she was seeing. At that sound, Rainbow Dash's head spun around, making eye contact with the three cowering fillies. Seeing them there gave Rainbow a surge of adrenaline. She leapt from the tree she had crashed into, moments before a hoof-held spade spun and stuck into the tree.
What are you doing here?
Rainbow screamed in anger, pushing all three fillies with her head in the direction she wanted them to go.
Run!
The Crusaders didn't need to be
Tu
told
es
twice.
einfach.
They ran from the carnage as fast as their little hooves could take them. That is, except Apple Bloom. Still shocked by the sound of her sister's voice, she deviated from the others and doubled back after Applejack.
Shit!
Rainbow screamed, heading back for the foolish filly and biting down hard on her tail before running again.
No! It's Applejack! I'll hurt her, I did!
Stop squirming!
Rainbow muttered angrily, with the filly's tail still clasped in her mouth. It wasn't long before she had caught up with Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle, whose little hooves could only move so fast. Rainbow charged ahead,
ich dachte, die hat das leeres Auge gehabt.
fallen branches
Oh nee.
to make way for the other Crusaders. Once on the other side,
Ja, zieh sie
Sweetie
einfach
Belle
mit.
tripped over a large
Alter, weg
fallen
da.
mass and tumbled a few feet away from it. When she opened her eyes, she let out an ear-piercing scream. That mass was none other than Princess Twilight herself, her head laying in a fresh pool of blood. Rainbow's head turned sharply around to shout something at the fillies, inadvertently tossing Apple Bloom in the process.
Don't stop!
However, Applejack sprang from the same thicket of branches, kicked off the ground with her front hooves, and bucked Rainbow clean in the jaw. Rainbow skid across the ground, but made no sound other than the garbled intake of breath. The lower half of Rainbow's jaw was completely dislocated, and now hung with the skin exposed from the carnage of her snout. The Crusaders ducked behind one of the trees and fell deadly silent. Not a single one of them could understand what they were seeing. Applejack had created an orchard graveyard of all of their friends from Ponyville. The missing tools were the means for their deaths, and still stuck out from their mangled remains. It was nearly impossible to tell who was who anymore, with the carnage of one pony's death seeping into another. Too traumatized to move to safety, they could only watch as the pony they once knew as Applejack descended upon Rainbow Dash, her next
Konnten die nicht entkommen?
In the light,
Ich dachte Rainbow Dash konnte entkommen mit hier
her right
Apple
front
Bloom.
hoof had a chunk of flesh missing and was oozing a sickening green pus, while the fur underneath was blackened and long dead. Her back legs, having once been broken now, looked strong with bones set incorrectly, causing her stance to widen and her left back hoof to drag along behind her. Her fur was marred by all manner of scars and matted with twigs, blood, and other pieces of fur and hair that were not her own. Most disturbing of all, though, were Applejack's eyes. They had completely clouded over, with the exception of 2 dark black pupils, staring straight into Rainbow Dash without any hint of sanity or mercy.
I told you, I don't want your fucking cure,
Applejack said, spitting on Rainbow Dash, who fought against choking on her own blood.
Cure?
Applebloom looked up from where she had landed, searching frantically for the needle that had been flung from Rainbow's grasp at the same time she had. Dazed and still in shock, it took a moment for Applebloom to focus her eyes and concentrate on nothing but finding the needle.
Do you honestly think there's anything left to cure, Rainbow? Do you still believe you're saving me?
Rainbow's eyes darted from Applejack to spy Applebloom creeping towards the needle, which was sticking out of a pile of dead pony debris. Applejack chuckled to herself. It swelled in her chest until she laughed madly in Rainbow's face.
Didn't you know, Rainbow? I'm the thing you fear most. I'm that madness crawling around under your skin, squirming, writhing around inside, just waiting to get free.
Applebloom's face lost all color. She pried the needle from the debris, having to pull it out of the eye socket of another one of Applejack's victims.
Aus irgendeinem Grund.
Oh, Rainbow, didn't you know? I am the inevitable. I'm the harbinger of fear and the messenger of truth you silence with hope.
Rainbow Dash made conscious efforts to not look at Applebloom.
Wirklich, ich guck's die ganze Zeit drauf, ich will einfach nur, dass es endet.
To keep Applejack's attention on her. Applejack took the bait, stamping her hoof hard on Rainbow's back, and leaned down close to her ear.
And that truth is that in the end, there ain't nothing at all except me.
Applebloom waited until she was within range, then charged at her sister from behind, the needle held high in hoof. She pierced into Applejack's flank and plunged the liquid into her bloodstream. Almost as if on reflex, Applejack reared her hind legs in the air and bucked Applebloom hard into the nearby tree. The dark stillness of the dungeon cell was broken by the sound of approaching hoofsteps. Applejack lifted her head from the cot and looked expectantly towards the door. Her only indication for the passing of time came from the light of a small window too far from her reach. When sunlight passed over certain stones on the wall, Applejack knew to expect her daily meals. It was the only change from the monotony of silence. This time, however, the approaching pony came entirely too early. Applejack's mind raced, hoping at last she could learn what was going on. Some pony magicked a key into the lock and opened the cell door. Applejack winced from the sudden brightness, but her expression quickly turned to a smile.
Komm, lass es wenigstens ein gutes Ende haben, dass die Wesen wieder zu sich kommt.
Her voice tinged with the professionalism that Applejack had only heard used in the presence of acquaintances or important guests.
Thanks, Celestia. I was beginning to think that some pony forgot I was here. What in the hell's going on?
Celestia.
What do you remember?
Applejack frowned and slumped back onto the cot where she had been lying.
I remember asking you for help and taking that strange potion of yours. But after that, things get really hazy. Next thing I know, I'm all wrapped up in gauze and bandages, down in pain pills like they're candy, and trying to get over the fact that I looked like I had been in some kind of terrible accident. What happened, Twi?
Twilight pursed her lips and fidgeted on her hooves. There was a slight tremor in her voice, as if she were needlessly nervous to answer.
Applejack, I don't know what you're talking about. There was no potion. You worked yourself too hard and it caused a mental break. You were spouting nonsense and acting violently. Not only did you harm yourself, but you harmed several others, turning your orchard into...
Into what?
Into a slaughtering ground. In your hysteria, you took the lives of 13 ponies and attempted to take mine and Rainbow Dash's lives as well.
What in the hay are you talking about? I'd never harm another creature, and I certainly would never put the lives of my best friends at risk. And of course there was a potion. You're the one who gave it to me in the first place.
Applejack, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
You can start by telling me why you're lying.
I am the Princess of Friendship. I have ponies who rely on my guidance, and I can't be taking the blame for the mistakes of my friends. Your mental break must have caused you some confusion.
Take the blame? You're the one accusing me of murder, Twi. We both know that I went to you for that potion. What was in that thing? Why can't I remember what happened? What did it make me do? Applejack shouted, wishing she could stamp her hooves down in anger, but feared
was sie da eigentlich so am gemischt hat und was da ist. Will ich so gern wissen.
Twilight completely ignored the outburst and continued.
Was überhaupt daran schuld war, warum sie das machte.
And given the fact that you assisted in saving Equestria on numerous occasions, we decided to grant you your life. A sentence to be carried out here for the safety of other ponies.
Why are you doing this? You know me, Twilight.
Applejack muttered, her voice tremoring as her mind tried to accept her friend's betrayal.
If there was such a potion, and I'm not saying there was, I would have tried to caution you to its adverse effects before giving you anything that could be considered dangerous.
That's it, isn't it? You're absolving yourself from the guilt, blaming everything on me so you can sleep at night,
Alter, guck mal nach links, ihr Gesicht.
what you've done.
You're the one who carried out those heinous crimes and disturbing deaths. You have no pony to blame but yourself.
Applejack looked at the pony who used to be considered her friend with a cold stare that could penetrate Twilight's heart. It wasn't like her to be so cold and calculating. The Twilight she knew would have stood with her friend and owned up to her mistakes, no matter the cost. While she racked her brain, searching for a plausible explanation, Twilight broke the silence.
I found a cure to whatever it was that ailed you. Even though I was too late to save the others, I knew I could save you. It wasn't until you were safe here that I could really focus on the drought. I did something even Celestia couldn't do. Find a spell to save Equestria. That's what I do, Applejack. I'm the Princess of Friendship. I wield the most powerful magic in the world, and it's my responsibility to harness that magic for the good of every pony. Equestria can't afford to lose the both of us.
So you sacrifice your friend to bury your secret. What about the element of honesty, Twi? The magic of friendship doesn't work without it.
It turns out that Starlight Glimmer might be more useful to Equestria than we thought. She wields the element now.
Elements of honesty.
Applejack sat, dumbfounded. The life she had lived passed through her eyes like a flickering memory, and she knew this cell was made specifically for her to rot.
Why'd you come then?
To say goodbye. And to see if
I was cured. Sorry to disappoint you, but I am. Your spell worked.
Twilight bit her lip and lowered her head. If Applejack wasn't herself, she could justify this in her mind. But Applejack wouldn't give that to her. She wanted Twilight to live with the weight of this guilt for the rest of her life.
Is Rainbow all right?
Rainbow Dash is still recovering, but she should be fine.
In my family?
Twilight hesitated again. She rubbed the back of her neck with her hoof nervously before answering.
They're all right. I should go now.
No. What's wrong? Is Big Mac still hurt?
Twilight's horn ignited, and she made her way towards the door.
Was ist da passiert?
He's fine.
And Granny?
I've gotta go, Applejack.
Applebloom?
Twilight flinched at the mention of Applebloom, and Applejack picked up on it immediately.
What's wrong with Applebloom?
Goodbye,
Twilight said, choking back tears as she closed Applejack's cell door and locked it again.
Where's Apple Bloom?
Twilight briskly walked away from the cell towards the guard pony waiting to guide her out. The sound of Applejack's cries were masked by the boom of thunder outside and the new rainfall hitting against the prison wall.
What? Please, you owe me this much. Tell me she's okay. Tell me what happened to my sister.
What the fuck? Oh, Alter. Und das war's. Das war die Creepypasta An Apple Sleep Experiment. Alter Schwede. Alter. Es war klar, dass es asozial wird, aber mach mal ein bisschen leiser hier. Aber alter Schwede. Alter, es ist wirklich extrem geworden. Also, aber ein bisschen ein bisschen strange ist es schon, weil warum? Warum das Ganze? Die ist irgendwie komplett verrückt geworden oder so, keine Ahnung. Wie gesagt, ich habe auch nicht ganz, den Grund verstanden. Also die konnten sie die ganze, mit dem, da das Geld fehlte, konnten sie irgendwie der Farm nicht durch den Winter kommen. Und er hatte diesen Deal da gemacht, dass er ihnen das Geld gibt dafür, dass sie für eine gewisse Zeit halt das machen schneller. Applejack hat deswegen diesen Trank da genommen, um die ganze Nacht durcharbeiten zu können. Und das war dann irgendwie, das war dann das, was hier, und deshalb ist es auch, ich mach das immer hier hoch so, An Apple Sleep Experiment. Das war dieses Schlimme. Die hätte schlafen müssen. Alter. Auf jeden Fall eine richtig krasse hier Creepypasta. Wenn ihr die auch richtig interessant findet, so wie ich, und auch gruselig, dann unterstützt es mit einem Like. Und, oh nein. Mach das weg. Lass mich bloß in Ruhe mit dem Zeug. Aber ja. Nein, habe ich gesagt, nicht hey guys. Auf jeden Fall, ja. Ich kann einfach nur nicht sagen, als, ja, lasst ein Like da. Und schau, mal schauen, ob ich noch einschlafen kann mit der Scheiße.